What's up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. A lot has changed in the last 24 hours, and I think it would be important for me to talk about it in this video because there's a lot of things that we need to go over and I need to explain and to kind of give you an understanding as to where I'm going with this and what ended up happening. So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and dive right into this right now. Starting off, we have the National Hurricane Center for you guys for their advisory. This is the latest on Invest 91L. We're going to go ahead and go over the advisory, and then we're going to go ahead and go right into the models because I'm going to mainly spend the day just talking about those and kind of how we got to this point and just kind of explain all of that. So here we go. And here's what we got. Shower and thunderstorm activity is currently limited and disorganized in association with a tropical wave over the central tropical Atlantic. Although upper-level winds are generally favorable for development, environmental dry air is likely to limit development over the next couple of days. However, a tropical depression could still form early next week as the system moves westward at around 10 miles per hour across the central tropical Atlantic. This system will likely be near the Lesser Antilles by the middle to latter part of next week, and interest there should monitor its progress. 40% chance of formation in the next 48 hours, 70% in the next 7 days. Now, if you're looking at this, you're probably thinking, okay, there's still a high chance of this developing according to the NHC. Why are we talking about this? What's going on with it? Earlier this morning, we were at a 60% in 48 hours and 90% in the next 7 days. The chances have dropped considerably, and they will continue to drop considerably. And in this video, I'm going to go ahead and talk about why. Starting off with this right here, we're going to go ahead. Actually, no, the Central Atlantic's actually the perfect area I want to take a look at. We're going to go ahead and start, and we'll go ahead and start with some of the model runs we saw last night. So, last night on stream, things got pretty interesting on Weather Kingdom stream. We were talking about this, and we're going to pull up the 0Z runs and then the 12Z runs to show you what exactly happened. So, here's your GFS run right here. This was at 0Z last night, so please do keep that in mind. But you had the system quickly organizing and developing, and then starting to really ramp up in intensity. It gets up to a mid to upper range Category 1 hurricane and heads towards Barbados, and then enters the Windward Islands as around a mid-range Cat 1, then enters the Caribbean Sea, kind of gets a little disorganized due to some wind shear, and then starts to ramp up once again near the Dominican Republic. And then, as we got towards the western Atlantic, you had the system moving through the greater Antilles, and then turning towards Florida and making landfall as a Category 2 hurricane. This was about 13 days out by the time this run initialized, so that was something we needed to watch, but still, you still had a pretty considerable shot of something going on. What has changed since 0Z last night? Well, there's one thing we need to take a quick look at because this is very important. What we had is this is the area of interest. This is Invest 91L where my cursor is, and this area of vorticity was also an area of concern to watch as well. There was thinking last night that this vorticity would kind of pull 91L and kind of delay its organization, but at the time we weren't really thinking too much about it because number one, this was hundreds of miles to the west, and number two, it was actually moving faster than what 91L was doing at the time, and it was mainly forecasted to stay further to the west while the system consolidated and then eventually got absorbed down the line. So that's what we had at 0Z last night. And we saw a similar topic happen at 6Z this morning as well. Let me go ahead and show you. The system consolidates, organizes, strengthens to a hurricane. It remains relatively weak. It's a bit weaker than the previous run, but still, you could say that this system was still likely to happen. What has changed since then? What has changed since this scenario? Well, let's go ahead and show you the 12Z. This is the 12Z run we have right here. This system tries to get its act together, then nothing really happens at all. And you're probably thinking, okay, Patrick, this is just one model run. This has been consistent across all the 12Z models. That's the main thing I've been kind of honing into the last 5 minutes. And we're going to spend the rest of this video talking about what happened. So here's what you had with your 850 millibar vorticity. So first of all, looking at the 0Z from last night, the vorticity over here is quite a bit stronger compared to what we were originally thinking. It's also a bit further to the east than when we were originally thinking. And then you had this system starting to organize, but then you had it getting pulled towards this area of vorticity right here and kind of started to really stretch it out. And that's why you really didn't see much organization happening. And by the time we got to 4 days out, you're thinking, okay, it's organizing. Things are maybe going to start developing. Not quite. There's actually some wind shear in this run as well that I want to show you. And as you can see, let's go ahead and compare this to the 0Z. Looking at this, it's considerably further to the south than what we were originally thinking. The trough is further to the south, and that stronger wind field is over there as well. So those two reasons are the main reasons why the 12Z runs killed development. And at this current point, based on what I'm seeing, and I'm sure you're probably thinking right now, okay, this is just a 12Z. What about 18Z? What about 0Z? What about all of those runs? I'm not confident that we're going to see a bounce back from this. And before I show you those other models, that I want to go ahead and explain to you why. Looking at this right now on satellite imagery, what you're seeing with this is pretty much almost zero convection with this right here. Last night, it actually looked really good. Let's go ahead and try 120 frames back. No, I'll have to use Invest 91L's satellite with this, but ultimately, it looked a lot better last night when we were talking on Weather Kingdom stream. So let's go ahead and go back to 120 frames if we can. I guess we can't. Well, okay, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. But ultimately, it looked a lot better last night. And then this morning, you had a lot of the convection just die off. And part of the reason for that is because the dry air that we were looking at actually dipped a bit further to the south than anticipated. And that dip ultimately is what started to choke out a lot of the convection with 91L. And that's another big reason why we're not seeing development. It was pretty interesting to look at it because before we were looking at this, we saw the dry air and we're like, yeah, we're seeing the dry air for sure, but it's based on the recent guidance, it looks like it's going to stay to the north of it, and this is actually going to be moving through better conditions. And for a while, that was true. But then overnight last night, it started to take a bit more of a dip to the south, and that we also started seeing this considerable decrease in convection with over here with 91L, and those two reasons were ultimately what killed it at the 12Z runs. So that's what we had for you guys right here, and I wanted to go ahead and show you guys that just to give you an idea of what exactly happened. Going to the Canadian run, let's go ahead and pull up 0Z from last night just to also show you this, because it's not just the GFS that's doing this. You had the Canadian run having the system kind of organizing, taking its time, then starting to strengthen about 4 days out to tropical depression, then tropical storm strength, and then you had this moving towards the Antilles, really going to the south, actually clipping north of Barbados as a 989 millibar system before moving through the Lesser Antilles. I believe that is south of Dominica right there as a hurricane before moving into the Leeward Islands and Puerto Rico. So the CMC pretty much from 12Z yesterday caved into the 0Z guidance from the GFS. And when we were looking at this last night, we were going, oh my goodness, this is a worst case scenario right here. Let's go ahead and show you the 12Z. A lot different. In fact, the Canadian also drops development because of the same vorticity problems. Also, there is a bit more dry air the Canadian's considering as well. So that was what you were dealing with right here with the Canadian especially moving forward and even down the road. If you thought, oh, this is going to develop down the road, it's probably not. So that's something you're going to want to pay attention to as well. So that's your Canadian run. Also, the icon, looking at 0Z, 0Z icon was really liking this, really wanting the system to organize and develop, move further to the south, and then start to strengthen as it moved further to the north. The 0Z icon was actually forecasting major hurricane strength 5 days out. It was unrealistic, but we were still looking at that, and we were going, yeah, this is pretty interesting to say the very least right here, as it head towards the Lesser Antilles. So that was your icon that you had for last night. Even the 6Z, I believe, looking at that, yeah, the 6Z icon actually had a little bit of something, but the 6Z icon kind of was the first indicator that something was not right. The 6Z icon had something, but it was considerably weaker. And then looking at the 12Z, yeah, it just shows no development at all. So that's kind of the latest what we have with the models for you right here. And I'm telling you guys this because, yeah, Invest 91L will probably be the biggest bust of the season. And we had a 90% chance of development on this yesterday and this morning. Now it's pretty much almost not going to happen at this. And I'm making this video just first off to kind of correct the record because I know I've been talking about this. The model data looked really good with this. But now that it's not and things have changed, I'm just here to correct the record for you guys. And I know I definitely played a role into a lot of the hype that went on with 91L. And I'm just here to correct the record saying, hey, a lot has changed. Things aren't going to be panning out as much as we thought they would. And that's kind of how this works. Weather's unpredictable. Yes, things can happen. But ultimately, this was kind of something that caught everyone, except for a few people, off guard. It caught a lot of us off guard. It caught, I'm sure, the NHC off guard. It caught off a lot of people off guard. So before you start giving flack and going, oh, you guys were wrong about this, you have to understand everyone was wrong about this. And that's something that you're going to want to pay attention to as well. And I'm not saying this to kind of shield myself from criticism. Yeah, I definitely have kicked myself in the shins a little bit over this, and I'm sure a lot of people have, including Weather Kingdom and others. But looking at this now, that's the data that we have for you guys. And I want to present this as clearly and as accurately as possible, just to show you, okay, this completely changed. What do we do now? So that's what we have for at least 91L. The next part of the video is going to be going, okay, we had 91L. What could potentially be the next hazard for the hurricane season? And we can go ahead and kind of elaborate on that a little bit. So here's what we have for you guys right here. This is the European ensembles. The European ensembles significantly decreased quite a bit last night. The European, I believe, was the first one to kind of drop development yesterday. And I was thinking, yeah, it's probably a one-time thing. And then the 0Z kind of did something similar. And then the 12Z, from what I'm going to gather, is just going to absolutely do nothing with this. So that's what we had before. However, you do look at some of these ensembles right here, and it looks like maybe the MDR does start to ramp up once again down the line. How far out is this? Let's go ahead and go to 7 days out. You do start to notice some ensembles picking up something about 7 days out over here in the MDR. And considering that it is in line with the Climate Prediction Center, you're going to want to watch out for that as well. So that's just something to be clear with right here. We're looking at another long-term threat from the MDR. Could it be another Invest 91 LTs? I don't know. It's too early to indicate with that data. But by and large, looking at this right here, yeah, you could definitely see some more development next week in the MDR and potentially things starting to fire off with the Central American gyre. Because I know the GFS ensembles kind of picked up on this a little bit as well. In fact, this is the 0Z ensembles right here. They're picking up on a gyre system moving through as well. So that's something you're going to want to consider consider too. This is, I believe, when this starts. Let's take a quick gander at this. I believe this starts in the next 5 to 6 days, where the low pressure systems start to get their act together. 180 hours out. Let's look at that. Yeah, you definitely started seeing a few ensembles with this right here, so you're going to want to pay attention to that. Just for my own curiosity, what's the 12Z GFS looking like? Right here, let's take a quick gander at that. Okay, the 12Z GFS actually does show two signals with this: a stronger MDR signal more down the road, and a stronger Central American gyre signal as well. So you're definitely going to want to pay attention to that. This does start 6+ days out, I will mind you, but still you're looking at those starting to ramp up, and you're wanting to go, okay, just because 91L didn't pan out, that doesn't mean other storms aren't going to as well. And this kind of proves that case and point. So I just wanted to highlight this for you guys as well, because just because one system doesn't really pan out doesn't mean the rest of the season is over. We still have 3 months of hurricane season left to go, and we're looking at maybe another shot on the MDR, as well as a shot with the MJO kicking in with the Central American gyre. So ensembles are starting to pick up on those scenarios as well. We're going to be watching those closely, because at that current, by the time we get to about a week out, conditions will be a bit interesting, and I want to kind of at least look at some of them as well, just to go, okay, if we're seeing the ensembles pick up on this, what are they seeing right here? What's the X factor? So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead now and show the wind shear map for you guys right here, and then the moisture. Here's your wind shear right here. Across the MDR, we're going to go ahead and start about 6 days out at this current rate. So going right here, the wind shear across the Caribbean and the MDR weakens considerably according to this forecast. And then you have this one low pressure system starting to organize over here according to the Euro. You do have some increased shear happening in parts of the Gulf region, and this is by 9 days out. So looking again at this right here, this is about 8 days out. Yeah, things will be a bit interesting. If we see a trough like that, it does look like that maybe something could develop in the Caribbean, but if it gets into the Gulf, it's gonna get run into the shear right here until this ridge starts to build in as well, and not really, and this area starts to lift. So that's something to pay attention to. And you do see a wind shear across much of the Gulf region for quite some time. So that's something to watch as well. But just looking at the 12C from yesterday, it's shifted a bit. So it's you can make the argument that it's far out and all that stuff, but you'll have to pay attention to that especially. Wind shear across the MDR definitely gets a bit more favorable as well again, so you're going to want to watch out and see how that pans out. Same with the Caribbean too with the gyre. That definitely gets a lot more favorable down the line, but we'll just have to pay attention to that. And then going to the dry air aspect of it right here, looking at this, yeah, there is some dry air that needs to be taken care of right here. The dry air has mainly been the main inhibitor, especially with 91L, but you do, in the long run, have a pretty big moisture pocket, a pretty big moisture area starting to develop over here, and that's going to mainly be in the main development region for quite some time. And even 9 days out, you do see increased moisture in parts of the Caribbean that could help allow this gyre to start ramping up. But ultimately, you're looking at all of this right here, and you're going, okay, we are still seeing some favorable conditions. We're going to want to watch out for that more in the long run. If the Climate Prediction Center, remember, if they highlight something, you're definitely going to want to pay attention to that as well. So that's kind of the situation we're dealing with right here today on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. Obviously, given the circumstances, we're not going to be streaming tonight because every single model is drop development. NHC is plummeting its chances and all of that stuff. But I did want to make this video to kind of clear the air as well as to kind of correct this the record and all of that stuff. So I really hope this does that, and we're going to do better next time. We're going to do more proper vetting, and we'll learn from this. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close the video out right here. I really hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. The goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. If you would like to help out, hang out, or ask us some questions, feel free to join the Storms United Discord server. The link to that is in the end screen. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.